Okay, and you say yes.
Good evening, everyone. This is our June 7th regular business meeting of the Columbus Board of Education. I am calling it to order. Please call the roll.
President Adair,
Present.
Ms. Beckerly,
Present.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Cole,
I am here.
Dr. Pierce, Vice President Reyes,
Here.
and Ms. Vera.
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. Will you please stand and join me in the pledge?
Of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, board members. On our agenda this evening, we do not have any public comment on agenda items. We are expecting a short report from our superintendent, no report from our internal auditor or treasurer. We have several items on board matters. We have our consent agenda. We do have one speaker on non-agenda items. If I can get there because our consent agenda is so long. There we go. And we have executive session, and then we will come back and adjourn in public session. Are there any, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any additions, comments, questions? Seeing none and hearing no objection, the agenda is adopted. All right, so let's go ahead and move over to our superintendent. Good evening.
Good evening. So President, thank you to President Adair. I have a few updates to share with the board tonight. I would like to start off with an example of students leading the way. As a part of planning for our district's participation in the upcoming Columbus Pride March on June 18th, our engagement team met with students at Columbus Gifted Academy who are a part of the school's Gay Straight Alliance Club. They had reached out through their teacher, Mrs. Laura Murphy, to ask if there was anything they could do to help with the planning for the march. During the meeting, they talked about many of the issues facing LGBTQIA+ students in our district and across the state. And the students provided several ideas for a potential theme for our CCS group in the march. One idea that really resonated with students centered around the safe space, stickers that many teachers had placed outside their classroom doors. This idea of safe spaces in our school buildings aligns with what we had said in a recent joint statement issued by the Board of Education, the district, and our labor union leaders. We strive, I quote, "We strive to provide a safe environment in which everyone can learn, work, and live with dignity and respect, free from fear and violence, and protected against discrimination regardless of their gender, identity, or sexual orientation." So we landed on a theme of safe space. And you can see the design for our t-shirts this year. As a part of the march, we will also have signs with the names of all of our schools as a reminder that we strive to provide safe spaces in all of our schools and for all of our students and staff. Tonight, I'm pleased to report that more than 1,300 people have already signed up to join us in the march on Saturday, June 18th. In Columbus City Schools, we've long recognized that we are all safer when we work together to prioritize safety, when we act together to protect each other, and when we speak out together about the need to keep our schools safe. Essential to this effort are the dedicated men and women in our Office of Safety and Security. They build the kinds of foundational relationships with our students and staff that are key to creating a culture of safety and responsibility. Whenever called upon, they answer without hesitation to keep every person out of harm's way. And in their well-recognized blue shirts, they are a visible reminder of our district's constant commitment to safe schools. So as we close out the school year, we paused last week on June 1st to recognize our dedicated safety and security team with the first Safer Together Appreciation Day. for Columbus City Schools. Please join me in thanking these committed individuals for their countless hours of working together to keep us safer. Many of our students truly did finish this year strong last week, and so we made sure to celebrate our roll call role models and in-school influencers who made attendance a priority in those final days. You might recall we launched our end-of-year attendance campaign about 2 months ago, recognizing that coming to school on time every day was just as important in the spring as it is in the fall. Across our district, our elementary principals have been recognizing the roll call role models in their ranks. And in our middle and high schools, we put a spotlight on the in-school influencers who demonstrated how coming to school every day was the latest trend. Thanks to our community partners at the Columbus Clippers, the AEP Foundation, Donato's, White Castle, and Tim Hortons, we honored students who showed improved attendance with special certificates, stickers, buttons, and free prizes. It worked. One school mentioned how their attendance rates jumped 20% compared to the beginning of the school year. In another school, the principals told me that after he rewarded students for improved attendance the first week, and after all those students who missed out had learned that that all they needed to do was come to school to be eligible for prizes, the number of roll call role models in his school doubled in the weeks after. To really hit home the importance of good attendance, especially through those final weeks of the school year, we celebrated every student who came to school on the final day with a free $10 gift card from our new friends at Scene 75. Yes, every student. I really want to thank Scene 75 for stepping up and donating nearly 46,000 gift cards to make sure every student in our district had an opportunity to earn a free $10 gift card to use at their huge indoor entertainment center at Tuttle Mall. Then we topped off the final day with a special visit by our friends at the Columbus Crew to Como Elementary, clapping out students with lots of fanfare as they left for summer break. Lots of fun and so many smiles from students and teachers alike. Looking ahead, our communications and engagement team, along with our attendance team, will take what we've learned this past year through our targeted attendance campaign to start next year with an even stronger message. And it will include our participation in a special partnership with the Columbus Crew, the Cleveland Browns, and the Ohio Department of Education. I don't want to give too much away right now. I'm looking forward to sharing more next month about the Stay in the Game network. I would say the importance of attendance will be top of mind for every student, staff member, parent, and community partner next year. So last week was the culminating moment for students in Columbus City Schools class of 2022. We held 19 graduation ceremonies and awarded diplomas to more than 2,100 students over the course of 4 days from June 1st to June 4th. Combined with our early graduates, more than 2,200 students have completed their high school graduation requirements, which represents 77% of the 2022 cohort. That is a 4% increase from last year at this same time. With more students anticipated to complete their requirements this summer, we expect our graduation rate to be above 79% for the cohort, which again will represent an increase from our 2021 school year. Thank you for all of our dedicated teachers, principals, and staff for your tireless efforts to help our students reach the finish line. And congratulations to our Columbus City Schools class of 2022. We cannot wait to see what you're able to accomplish wherever life takes you next. More than 6,000 students and families jumped at the opportunity to continue learning and reimagine and remain engaged, over the summer with our summer experience and other individual school programs. Summer experience provides truly immersive classroom and community-based experiences, tying back to some of the areas of studies we introduced with Pathway Express in the spring. Our teachers and community partners have created powerful, hands-on enrichment opportunities that would challenge students and continue to grow and continue growing as learners. This 6-week summer enrichment program allows us to continue the investments we've made in our students academically and socially, as well as nurture their curiosity and potentially opening doors to new career interests. Supervisor of Digital and Extended Learning, Brianne Pannell, is here along with the elementary curriculum team tonight to preview what students and families can expect when the 2022 summer experience kicks off in 2 weeks. So I'll turn it over to Brianne.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Dr. Dixon, Dr. James, and board members.
Good evening.
Research shows that partnerships between the community, which aim to make learning interactive, increase student achievement. During this year's summer experience, we have added 4 experiential paths accessible to all learners, collaborating with multiple partnerships. Our goals include prioritizing the whole child, strengthening reading proficiencies, and closing gaps while providing a more individualized approach to learning. Summer experience connects seamlessly to our Pathway Express initiative. The summer experience programming includes an emphasis on arts, entrepreneurship, and learning the world through world languages and cultures. Based on our community, admin, and staff and family feedback, we've made a few adjustments to the learning experiences this summer, increasing the amount of ELA, math, and SEL. Each student will choose from a project over 6 weeks. On the final day, students will have a celebratory event to showcase the projects that they've worked on during the summer. Our high school students have had the opportunity to participate in AP Lit, AP Lang, calculus boot camps, and project-based foundational courses like English 9. We still have fluid support for our students participating at our APEX sites and continually build out our Spruce Run counselors and training support, which is a really big hit. We still have full support of all of our APEX sites for all of our staff. Our one goal this year is to ensure that a safe haven is provided for all of our students. During COVID, we were very aware that our students saw uncertainties, and it was at its peak. During this year's summer experience, with the support of Buckeye Ranch, our students entering high school for the 2022-23 school year have access to a social-emotional component. They will learn skills of stress management, problem solving, and even how to deal with feelings of alienation. In addition, our families will receive a quick newsletter introducing them to the program and activities over the summer. We are super excited about our community collaborations, which are critical to ensure that our students have the network ability and have access to network opportunities. During 2022 summer experience, we have added over 25 new partnerships, furthering our community collaboration, ranging from companies like AWS Amazon, Maroon Arts Group, to the Give Back Hack, just to name a few. These partnerships have given us the building blocks to providing alternative learning experiences for all of our students and families. Our at-home libraries have been essential to the programming structure of our summer experience. Our students in each grade level will add additional books to their at-home library and will have a few visit from authors like Nick Stone, Brian Moss, and Sonia Manzana. Our extended learning partnerships are vital to ensure a student's success. We have partnered with our Columbus Park Recreation Learning Without Walls programming, and we know that this will be a fascinating and wonderful, excellent experience to increase student success. Last year, We had a phenomenal 8,100 students enroll in our summer experience. This year, we are over 6,000 students. We are laser focused on student achievement, and adding the necessary staff to promote student achievement and success is vital. We look forward to this year's summer experience and know that every moment counts to make sure that our students are ready to graduate on August the 14th. Does anyone have any questions before I turn it over to our team?
Not right now, but maybe at the end of the.
Okay, thank you.
So
Like-
yes.
I would now like to introduce Donna Taylor, our Director of Elementary Education.
Good evening. My name is Mrs. Donna Taylor, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Elementary Curriculum and Instruction. Joining me and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director.
It should be. They control it back there. Go ahead. There we go.
Good evening. My name is Donna Taylor, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Elementary Curriculum and Instruction. Joining me this evening is Ms. Amber Bernal, one of our English Language Arts coordinators, and Mrs. Deborah Nace, one of our math coordinators. Today, we are honored to share with you an overview of our Friday Super Scholar Academy. After analyzing Boy and Moy, I-Ready achievement and growth assessment data, the decision was made to offer additional support for our first and second grade students. Building on the success of our previous Saturday Academy, Friday Super Scholar Academy was developed. First and second graders in Columbus City Schools would have an opportunity to attend additional summer school days on 6 consecutive Fridays. Each week, students will receive incentives as encouragements and rewards for their hard work and diligent effort. The final day of the academy will include when students receive their attendance incentive certificate, a blank comic book for writing their own superhero story, and a superhero cape and mask. We want them to know that they are superheroes, and we are and will be celebrating their hard work as they continue to put forth their strength and effort into increasing their math and reading superpowers. We will be providing students with explicit and intentional math and reading instruction at 7 locations across all regions. Currently, we have 570 students enrolled in our program with a maximum class size of 15 students.
Our daily lessons are aligned with the core instructional framework, as well as our math and ELA frameworks. Our lessons are written and aligned to identified priority standards that focus on foundational math and reading skills. Our lessons include learning intentions, success criteria, explicit vocabulary instruction, and checks for understanding. Teachers will receive materials including math manipulatives, a building fact fluency kit, teacher manuals, student workbooks, as well as 2 books that students will be getting to take home with them. To build student efficacy with mathematical discourse, we are using the 3 reads routine from our iReady Mathematics classroom. This routine helps students make sense of the problem before working with numbers found within them. Students will be familiar with this routine from the implementation during the school year. For strategy fluency, our students will work on lessons that include real-world contexts like lemonade and money, math tools like counters and 10 frames, as well as word problems and number talks to build their flexibility and understanding of their number sense. Amber will explain the ELA portion.
Much scientific evidence on learning to read has shown that students who have not learned foundational reading skills by the end of first grade are highly likely to experience chronic reading difficulties. Research also shows us that difficulty with phoneme awareness and other phonological skills is a predictor of poor reading and spelling development. In an effort to prevent these difficulties with our students, intentional thought and planning has gone into the ELA lessons. During the Super Scholars Academy, students will receive explicit instruction in each of the 5 essential components of reading, or the 5 big ideas of reading. Daily lessons include instruction in phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension, as well as explicit writing lessons. Selected resources provide consistency for our students with the instruction that they receive during the school year, and allow for reteaching and reinforcement of skills and concepts that have already been taught, as well as addressing any unfinished learning to help prepare our students for the upcoming school year. Explicit instruction and phonemic awareness will occur utilizing lessons from the Hegarty primary curriculum. Careful thought was given to the skills and concepts in each week's lessons, ensuring students would have the opportunity for both recognition and production as they analyze and manipulate the sounds and words. Explicit instruction in phonics with a focus on fluency occur utilizing resources from Foundations and Wilson. We know that when text is not read in an efficient manner, when our readers have to work hard to decode the words on the page, it's difficult for the child to remember what has been read and relate the content to the text to their background knowledge. And so we have a strong emphasis on fluency during the Super Scholar Academy. Explicit reading instruction utilizes decodable texts from Hegarty that include a combination of both literary and informational texts. Texts are considered decodable when approximately 95% of the words in the text and the sounds and spelling patterns have been taught. Using decodable texts will allow teachers to continue working on students' fluency skills while also addressing comprehension strategies. The decodable text will go home with students at the end of the academy to be added to their home libraries. The reading lesson will then flow into an explicit writing lesson that utilizes instructional strategies from the Writing Revolution book. Students will practice sentence writing skills as they respond to the topics and themes from that day's text. Tying into our superhero theme, we have weekly read-alouds that help students see themselves as superheroes that possess superpowers. This is also an opportunity to bring the day's learning together and to build students' confidence in themselves as learners. For the final writing lesson at the end of the academy, students will write about a quality they possess that makes them a superhero and write about their own superpowers.
Yeah, so as you come together, I think this microphone is working now. Just kind of want to remind the board, when you look at your goals and guardrails, you can see the alignment of our goals when we think about strengthening reading proficiency. They've been very intentional about that. Again, closing opportunity gaps. And we also talked this morning in our cabinet meeting how these align to those portrait attributes, right? The skills. So there's some direct correlation there too, and for our guardrail. So thank you for this presentation. We're opening it up for questions from the team. And then if, Leslie, if you want to come up as well. Thank you. Board President.
Yeah, we have some questions. Board Member Beckerly.
I think that, I mean, I taught in elementary school, so I love all of what you said in terms of the substance and the thought behind it. And I love, as Michael pointed out, all the phonics, because that was, as I said, it was the best, the quickest accomplishment of any candidate ever, because I kept saying we need phonics. In the very first board meeting, we started buying Wilson. So, like, you had me at all of that. However, we are trying, we are working toward, we're not trying, we are working toward being outcomes focused. So while I love hearing all of this, and this is my jam, what we really need to know is where the kids are when you start, and where they are when they ended, and what worked and what didn't. And that's what we want to hear at the end of the summer school. The second question I have is, all of this reading stuff that you talked about at the end is just six Fridays, right? Okay. Next thing, I'm looking at this chart, I think that Ms. Pennell talked about, the attendance, and I'm trying to figure out this 6,000. It was the question I had asked earlier in writing, one of the board questions. Of that 6,000 that's enrolled, which I assume we're wishing was much higher compared to last year, because we were hoping we were going to be higher than last year. So, I mean, we have a conversation that we're not having.
Well, initially, we targeted more students, but last year, although we had almost 8,000 students, we didn't have as many programs available to students. And so what we've learned this year, that there's so many programs that are being offered this summer
By others?
by other partners,
Right.
that there's so much choice, and our students have been involved in other programs rather than coming to Columbus. Whereas last summer,
We were the only show in town.
pretty much, we're the largest show, but many other partners did not have, because of COVID restrictions, many other partners were not offering summer programs, so we had a lot of students. And then, remember, last summer, too, we were very intentional of getting our students back as their first experiences coming back in school after being 18 months away from us and in cohorts. That was our first opportunity to bring them back in hands-on activities. So we we targeted more students, but we didn't realize there was going to be a lot of other opportunities for our kids.
But I think that that's an important discussion for us to be having, because, I mean, next year, can we, coordinate better, as you and I spoke about offline? Are these other opportunities as enriching as what our summer school would have been? And, there's all sorts of things hovering about this that I think is really the strategic discussion that we need to be having. And so that's the one thing I want to note. And the other thing that I'm trying to tease out is this chart has 1,881 students at Georgian Heights doing credit recovery, and 1,881, coincidentally the same number, I guess, at Indianola. Is that part of the 6,000?
So the chart that you're referencing, so the chart that you might be referencing is the breakdown of students. On the top, it says elementary, and on the other side, it says middle/high school.
That's
So
the one I'm
credit
on, Middle Squash High School.
So credit recovery is for high school,
I understand that.
and then the sites are listed. It should say, there should be 4 of them right beside, so it should say elementary, the individual site, then it should have the number beside them, and then it should say credit recovery, and then also another enrollment number.
It does. And what I'm trying to find out is if those numbers are in,
Included in
The
6,000?
6,000.
Yes. Yes.
so how many, is it 3,600 of the 6,000 are doing credit recovery, or 1,800?
1,881 students are doing credit recovery.
Okay.
1,881.
Oh, I see, I'm
Do
reading
you
the
see?
chart
That's
wrong.
okay.
Got it,
Okay.
got it.
It's okay.
Okay.
Well, it appears twice on the chart.
It appears twice on the chart.
Right.
Okay, so, and then of the remainder that are not doing credit recovery of the summer experience, is there yet again a breakdown between those who are doing the experiential stuff with the partners and those who are doing more remedial? Or are all the elementary kids doing and middle schoolers doing the experiential?
Yes, so all of our elementary and middle school students are doing our summer experience, the experiential.
Okay.
And so we have a breakdown on that sheet with the 1,881 with the credit advancement, the 584 students during credit advancement, and then we also have a different component of the 100. I would have to get the number for you. I will confirm that number. The
Okay,
face-to-face
that-
project-based courses for the foundational skills for high
Okay.
school.
And then The other question I had is, I saw the thing about Parks and Recs, you had a slide. Now, early on in the school year, we talked about hoping or expecting that Parks and Recs would fill in at the 1 o'clock when our time ended, and we were thinking on Friday, but it sounds like we came up with how much overlap is there between summer experience and the Friday kids?
So our Friday students are our students that have been participating in our Monday through Thursday program.
That was my question.
So that there is a great connection between them.
Sure, so the kids are kind of doing the experiential thing during the week and then coming for extra on Friday,
So
right?
they're having an opportunity to practice this skill.
So we sort of solved the Friday problem for the elementary kids. And what exactly are we doing for the kids whose families who need childcare essentially, or some sort of place for their children between 1 and when the workday ends for most people?
So we do have some additional programming at our middle school sites. 4 of our middle school sites will be hosting additional extended.
I saw some of that. I guess my question was the numbers, because you answered that when I asked the question in writing, but how many of our kids are covered? Who needed it? I mean, maybe some don't need it.
So I'm not sure how many needed at this point. I would have to get a number to you based on site and location. We've emailed families, and so I can get back to you guys and let you know the specific numbers along with each site too as well.
Or what the capacity?
So the capacity is about 50.
Total.
Yes, no. So at each site, so if we have.
So that's almost
Wedgwood,
200, okay.
Right, so if we have Wedgwood, for instance, that's 50 additional students that are able to come from that 1 to 5 and then all day on Fridays from 8 to 5, making it a total of
Oh,
an
okay.
8 to 5 summer experience. Yes, ma'am.
But would just be students who are going to the summer experience
Yes.
at that site?
Yes,
So we're not going to be it's not an option for another site to go there and use the aftercare essentially,
no, not unless a parent wants to transport.
to drive them
to another
themselves,
Friday.
okay. I think those were,
Can you let them answer your first question, which was a really great question about how do we know we're going to be successful? What are your end kind of metrics that we're going to judge on to demonstrate success at the end of the summer?
So I'll just speak to that just a little bit for elementary. All of our elementary students during their reading lesson will be working on our personalized learning paths, and so we have that information at the beginning. And so as students matriculate through the summer experience, they will have access to those learning paths, and then we'll have that information at the end as well. So that will be for middle school and middle and elementary school. And so for high school, it will be like the completion of courses as well as the advancement courses as well. So that will be easy to quantify at the end of summer experience.
and are any of the high schoolers doing that project-based, community-based learning like they did last year with the
Yes.
Corda Institute?
So the Corda Institute isn't currently working with us. We are, I don't have an answer for how we're going to move forward with that, but currently we are not working with Corda. And so what we are doing this year is we have some project-based courses, those foundational courses, available to our summer experience students, as well as students at Spruce Run for our creative writing, photography.
So the high schoolers are still getting that kind of instruction? All right, thank you.
Yes, and if I could also add, we are still working with Corda to develop what that could look like moving forward. So they're not here right now, but I'd also like to answer, President Adair, your question regarding outcomes. So the other part that we're going to be able to look at that's going to be very, very helpful is that end of year, especially for our first and second graders who are doing our Friday Academy, is that those students have done their end of year. So we know where they were at the end of the year.
Right, that's what I want.
Yes, ma'am. And then when we start at the beginning of the year, not only will we be able to see the impact of the academy compared to other students that didn't attend, but we're also going to be able to really look at that reduction of that summer slide that we sometimes see between the end of year and beginning of year.
And will you be able to measure it? Is it going to be sort of on a group basis or actually student by student?
We'll be able to do it student by student, but also by cohort. So we'll be able to follow those groups of kids.
So for example, all right, I'm going to get a geek for a second.
Okay.
So for example, you might predict the summer slide to be X%, and you'll be able to say these kids hopefully didn't get it.
Yes, so we'll be able to actually look at those kiddos compared to other kiddos
Wonderful.
that did not attend.
Thank you.
Dr. Pierce?
Thank you so much for the presentation. Real quick, did we miss the memo on the matching outfits and the
I know.
coordination?
You know, I have to say, it's
You
my
know.
team. It was their idea.
I think
I just
that
come
kinda-
along for the ride.
That signals synergy between the team members, so we noticed people. So on the partner list, I did not, please clarify if I missed, I did not see our Columbus Metropolitan Library System listed. So are we partnering with them with their reading program? Are our students automatically signed up?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't see it. That's why I said, please correct me if I'm wrong. I appreciate the culturally relevant materials. Can you guys briefly speak on how we will engage parents in the learning partnership during the summer program? Will there be required meetings? Will additional information be sent home? What does that parent engagement component look like?
Thank you so much, Board Member Pierce. Can everybody hear me now? Okay, good. So we actually have a few meetings that we're going to have our engagement sessions next week. So we're going to have those actually next Tuesday for our families, so they will have additional information coming out. We also are sending out additional emails to families, specifically our 8th grade students. You know, the bridge from middle to high school is really, really tricky, right? And so we know that our students will need that support, and so we're going to be sending some newsletters and some couple of tip sheets out to families to how to support students when they're at home over summer experience. That'll go out through our Infinite Campus portal, but we have some sessions set up for our families.
Okay, excellent. I appreciate that you all are doing that, and that leads to the next question. Throughout the year, we have been very intentional about what students we would or should be recommended for summer school. In the chart, and this would probably come at a later date, I would be interested to know of those students that we recommended, that we contacted the families and said, hey, we want your student at summer school, what percentage of those students have actually enrolled in summer school? And then if we could see at the end of summer school if those students were retained throughout the entire program. So I think in addition to looking at the growth that we see, we also have to measure whether or not our targeted outreach to families are working, if it's responsive to families. So that data will help us understand that. Thank you. That was my only questions.
Thank you. Are there additional questions?
I have a question about attendance all-stars.
Or Beckerly?
No, not about the first part of the superintendent's report.
I just want to add something really quick to your question, Board Member Pierce, about parents. For our Friday Academy on the last day, parents are invited to come in when their students receive their cape and their mask, because they are now super scholars. And we are building off the success of our Saturday super readers academies we've had in the past. And it is very exciting when they get those capes and their masks. They really feel like these superheroes. Absolutely. And so we invite parents to come in, and they really enjoy it.
Invite some board members.
That's awesome. Invite us too.
Absolutely.
And share the wardrobe, the outfit.
Oh,
They do.
I have super reader
We gave,
capes.
They do.
And I
We-
get cape.
we gave capes out this morning.
Yes.
And-
Stan, you were supposed to wear your cape
I
and
know,
your
I
mask.
forgot mine,
Right.
but I
Right.
haven't completed the class.
Right, Carolyn?
So, I
Right?
don't
You were supposed, we
qualify.
agreed in a meeting today that we were going to wear your
supposed
cape
to
and
wear
mask.
his cape.
And then we, at the home libraries, I'm sorry. Want to mention that? I don't forget that.
I forgot
one
one addition. Leslie peeked my interest. Go ahead.
Look at this.
I feel like we're playing musical chairs, but that's okay. All right, so I did want to just kind of expand on our parents coming out. That last week, we have, based on the paths that our students have chosen, our entrepreneurship path, our partners, they're going to be experiencing a Shark Tank. And so our kids will actually go out and kind of walk through and have a conference that we're working through, and so our parents will have an opportunity to participate in that. We have students that will, at our School for Boys, that will be working on creating comics during our summer experience as well, and so parents will be able to see that in action in real time at CCAD. So all of our partners will be hosting some of those that last final week. All of those celebratory events will happen over a period of time. Our World Languages and Cultures we will have a celebration for each of those Monday through Thursday. So I will get that information to all of our board members, Dr. Dixon and Dr. James, so everyone is aware. So if you'd like to pop in for any of those things, any of our opportunities, that you can come out and see this in action.
That's awesome, and you just sparked my interest. So are we doing the free meal program at the sites as well? So are we planning to share that information with community members that, might want to or be interested in our schools as well, that they could come in to some of those events?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Oh, go ahead.
Board Member Beckerly?
It sounds like part of what you're describing with these engagement opportunities are real ways to draw families in.
Absolutely.
Get that on your slide. No, I mean, because that's a big piece of attendance, that's a big piece of all of it. So that, I really like hearing that, thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Are there any more
To
questions?
just add that about to take home books. I think
Yes,
that's
so
important, yeah.
we have additional books that we have for our students to promote social emotional learning and supports for them. So we have that are going to be going home to add to our take-home library as well. So all of our students are adding to that during the summer experience, whether you're in elementary, middle, or our high schoolers. So we were really excited about extending that work during the summer experience.
Thank you. And I just want to remind our public and our board that we changed, we were very intentional about moving away from summer school, right, and providing a summer experience. So that was very strategic. So what we've been providing for the second year is an experience for students to not see summer school as a place that they have to go to repeat something. Right? It is a place that they can accelerate their learning. And that's why we're thinking about those courses like ASL
Yes.
and Japanese,
Yes.
in which we're, we got information from students to see what would they like to see some courses in summer school. So it is an experience that we want our students to have. We want them we're going to have that data to have some metrics to see where they've grown. But we were very intentional about not using our summer resources for students just to recapture credit, but also to explore new experiences. And that is happening in CCS for the second year. So we're so excited about the number of students that were involved last year and the numbers that are involved this year. And over time, we will see that we've not had these type of numbers of students that are participating in a summer experience. And we connected last summer experience to the Pathway Express that was happening this school year. So that was, again, very strategic that we take last year's learning, we connect it to COSI, Columbus Metropolitan Library, North Market, all of those amazing places. That learning started last summer, and the summer experience and extended. So thank you all. We look forward to that presentation to the board about how well our students were doing. And again, we extended our partnerships. Again, very strategic. We have more partners this year, far more, but it shows that how important partnerships are to the district and how we are doing that outreach and reaching out to the various partners around the community and tell them to come and join us as we provide these new experiences for our students. So thank you so much. Thank you. I still have a couple more things. I would like for us, we go back to the slide. All right. So save the date. So even as we're wrapping up the current school year and planning for our summer program, we still have an eye on the start of next year. So plans are already underway for our back-to-school events to kick off the 2022-23 school year. I encourage you to save the date for two big events coming up in August. The first is the back-to-school free family resource fair. Will be held on Saturday, August 20th on the campus of Fort Hays. All CCS families will be invited to join us that day to visit tents and booths from all of our community partners who want to share resources with our students and families to get them ready for a successful school year, along with key district departments who can address any last-minute needs. So this will be our first time having this event, again, on the campus of Fort Hays. And then 2 days later, on Monday, August 22nd, we will host our all-staff convocation tentatively at the Crew New Stadium, Lower.com field. And we look forward to celebrating the start of another school year with a festive atmosphere and an engaging event for all of our teachers and staff. So again, that's our family resource fair, back to school fair at campus of Fort Hays, and our all-staff convocation on August 22nd. So more information to come, but I do want us to hold those dates. And more details will come, and we will post those again on our social media outlets. And this concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there questions for Superintendent about the other aspects of her report? Let's see.
Well, yeah, just quickly, again, I want to thank you and the team for putting together what I came with this thing called SEUS, Summer Experience with Substance. So thank you for that. The one thing that just came to mind for me was the question of our panorama data. Did we actually design some of our summer experience using our survey data in mind? And if not, are we thinking about leveraging that opportunity in the future?
Which microphone?
Yes. So one of our big key findings with our panorama data is the need to build self-efficacy in our students. So that building confidence in themselves as learners and seeing them as, we call that assessment capable, research calls that assessment capable learners, where they believe they can be successful. And so this experiential learning, those opportunities, the built-in focus and attention to discourse and getting students speaking mathematically and speaking education, language, and working together, all of that is designed to build that self-efficacy and for students to see themselves as successful. The research also tells us, like Dr. Dixon mentioned, that these experiences where you're not focusing on the need to go back, where you're not creating these experiences where students feel like I did something wrong. Kids know they struggle. They don't need a reminder that they struggle. They need an opportunity to see that, what that potential is, and be able to push through that. So even our Fridays Academy is built on grade level instruction with an opportunity to hear it again and to practice it again. So yes, that idea of really building that efficacy for our students comes from our panorama data.
Thank you. Thank you very kindly.
Dr. Pierce.
So I just want you to very briefly clarify for me what you mean by all staff in terms of the convocation. Will our bus drivers?
Oh, yes.
Instructional assistants?
Thank you. It's all staff. Everyone who's employed by Columbus City Schools participated in convocation. We had our first one in many years back in 2019. It was held at the Columbus Convention Center. This year, we wanted a new place outdoors, but it's the entire staff, CCS staff, classified, certified, almost 9,000 staff members will be participating in this event.
That's absolutely awesome.
Yes,
Thank
and board members as well.
I think I hit a two-step last one, so
Yeah.
you know, who got it this time?
Yes, but thank you for asking for clarification on that, but it is all staff. Thank you.
Board Member Beckerly.
I just have a request. That attendance information in the beginning was really exciting. And I would love to see the data, like, you shared bits and pieces, like, let's see it all laid out. Which buildings grew, which didn't, and how much, and that kind of thing. As where it's working, where it's not.
Yeah.
And let us see the attendance improving.
Yes.
So let's, it's nice to hear that this principal had 20% and this principal had this, but I would like to see it,
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
more systematically. Thanks.
Thank you. We didn't do this at the beginning, but I do want to just take a moment to, we're 2 weeks out from the shooting that happened in Texas. And, we didn't have a board, the board meeting did not coincide, and I just, we didn't get a chance to actually talk about that or give a moment of silence for those victims, as well as all of the victims, really, of mass shootings across this country, here in our city, just the victims of gun violence. It's a devastating problem. It's a community problem, and unfortunately, when it happens in our schools, it's a travesty. and the loss of young life is just beyond disbelief. And I think as people that work in the school space, even hearing about it across the country, it is just heartbreaking. And the superintendent did that day issue a statement, and so we thank her for that and her leadership among our team and those that needed additional help and support. Because again, even though it was in a different state, the effects are felt. And I think that, as our community always does, asking the tough questions about safety and what happens if it happens here, what are the plans? While obviously due to security we can't share all plans, that is something that this board is very interested in making sure that our district is ready. And even in light of what happened, I think that there are going to be new and different just best practice strategies across the nation, even about what happens and the way that we are even training our staff and kids about what to do in those situations. And is hide the right first step for our kids? And so, trying to figure out what are the needs of our community, how do we fix this together while maintaining vigilance is so important. So I just wanted to, if we could, take a brief moment of silence for the 19 students and 2 teachers, as well as every life that has been taken across the country and here in our city due to gun violence. Thank you. I continue to urge the community as well as, we as the board will advocate on behalf of our students in our community here at CCS on what we think is in the best interest with our legislators around gun control and what will and will not happen in our buildings. We issued a statement I'm not sure if it's actually been picked up, but the board has issued a statement regarding House Bill 99. And whether or not it is our intention to arm teachers, and it is not our intention to arm teachers. Our staff, all of our staff, have very important jobs to do already. We already know we ask a lot of them, and carrying a gun and asking them to protect and be a law enforcement officer is not part of those duties. And so this board will not be, advocating or allowing our staff to carry arms on campus. And so we've issued that statement around House Bill 99, and we do urge the governor not to sign that. Any comments about that? And also, just while we have a pause, on a positive note, board members, you got to participate in graduation, and that was actually part of the slides. So if you'd like to make a few comments, I'll allow that, even though we kind of stopped doing that. But I'll allow that in this moment on either that issue or the happiness of graduation, which unfortunately I was not able to participate in. So thank you, board members, for stepping in for me in those instances. So we'll start Board Member Brown, since he had his hand up.
Thank you. And, I agree fully with you with respect to keeping our kids safe in school, even from the horrible possible entrance of a shooter or some other terrible circumstance. I think we really do need to sit down and study the best practices. Just this afternoon on the radio, not that there's a shortage of talk about these things, there was one of the leading national experts on this particular thing of what to do, what to teach children to do, said very directly and plainly that too many schools are still teaching hide, run, fight, and that is absolutely wrong, that it should be run. Get out of there. And, you can't be a target if you're gone. And then if that hasn't happened, perhaps hide or fight, and be prepared to actually do something if that's all that's left to be able to do. And I think that, I don't know what the facts are, let alone the story with the law enforcement in Texas. But clearly that was a problem. So we need to be talking with our Columbus Police Department about where they come in and how they come in, and with our own security team. I think those are critical. I think there is a great deal of confusion among the public on what the right steps are. And I don't think that there's, I think there are right ways and wrong ways. And I think we need to teach that and help educate the community.
Dr. Pierce?
So definitely want to thank you for providing the opportunity for us to take the moment of silence to acknowledge the level of gun violence that is happening in our local community as well as throughout our country, throughout the world. I think the gravity of what is happening, again, in our local community as well as throughout the country, puts us in a unique opportunity and position as a board to reconvene a meeting to look at our safety and security plan. Specifically, what is our plan to ensure that we have a partnership with our Columbus Police Department? What is our plan to ensure that the wanding that is occurring at schools randomly or at athletic events is done with fidelity, fairness, with security policies, procedures put in place? So while I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation, I think it opens up our responsibility as a board to have a very serious conversation about how we're going to advance and protect the safety and security in this district for our students, for our staff, and promote that even outside of the walls of our school. As we look at this great summer experience that we have, we can be leaders in our community by showing community members the way to create safe, nurturing environments. And again, I think this provides a great opportunity for us to take the lead in that.
Thank you, Vice President Reyes.
I agree with what has already been said about the security. What I'd like to add for the graduations, I think it is one of the most exciting and rewarding parts of being on the board, are seeing our families, seeing our students. Our students are remarkable. The words that were spoken from our students, I know we're trying to lift up, but Dr. Dixon and I sat at East High School, and there was a student that talked about the difficulty he's had all year, from, I think, kindergarten till now. His social emotional issues, his drug issues, his several attempts at suicide throughout his career at in Columbus City Schools, and his thanks to the educators, to the leaders, to the resources, to the people that helped him, in addition to his parents, and he ended his career as the salutatorian at East High School. And if there was hardly a dry eye in the whole room. It was a very rowdy crowd. When that young man spoke, it went silent. His bravery, I mean, I'm still reeling from that experience. I've been here a long time, and the words that young man said, they really touched me.
Now we all have to go back and watch it if you didn't get to see it. Luckily, they're all recorded and on our streaming channels. You're going to make me cry.
Sorry.
Roman McCole, do you have anything to add?
Yes, yes, very briefly. To my colleagues' comments about the gun violence, situation. It's incredibly tragic that folks choose to take lives, well over 30,000 lives a year are taken because of gunfire. I too, like you, want to ensure safety for our children and our staff, in Columbus City Schools. What I definitely want to challenge us all to do, and more particularly the listening community to do, is do this. Let's convene these conversations not in a polarizing spirit of what is right and wrong. We already know the morality of the situation. What we don't need to do is argue about best practices. Let's find the solution collaboratively together, and let's move forward, but not do it in a spirit of, versus, and this is the way versus this is the way. Let's find the way together, and pray that we don't ever have to see that type of day in this city or this district. Moving forward to the graduation piece, I often share to the listening community there that I love this time of year more than Christmas. I truly do. It is a time that people from all different walks of life get to come together and celebrate on one accord their investment of love, their investment of discipline. 80% we taught you to do what you're supposed to do, and we're celebrating that. The 20%, hopefully less, you're in trouble. But we came to celebrate the discipline, the love, all of the things that poured into those youngsters, like the one you just spoke about, Ramona, that these youngsters graduate and cross that finish line. My son graduated this year, and I had the opportunity not to only officiate other graduation ceremonies, but his. And I did not become emotional at that time. I'm glad I didn't. But it is one of those very sobering things to know that you are preparing young people to go off into the world of adulthood ready. And if there's one thing I did see in this graduating class across the board was a sense of readiness on their part. Certainly they were nervous, certainly they're scared, certainly there's a great deal of ambiguity. But they seemed very poised and ready to move forward. I want to ensure that we encourage that from 9th grade on up, from 8th grade on up, that this day will come, and that we want to ensure you're highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, and empowered for success as citizens in a global community. Thank you.
Board Member Beckerly.
I am going to be emotional, and I'm not going to be embarrassed or apologize for it. Quickly on the school safety front, I was struck with this latest tragedy that, adding to all of the things everyone else said, we need to be mindful of the secondary trauma just when this happens, and our students and our staff and our principals and our custodians and everyone who has to show up at the building the next day. And I don't know exactly what the formula is. I'm sure people who are smarter than me, but like some way to make sure we address that, even if we're not going to solve it, but the healing that comes from owning and acknowledging that it's harder to show up today than it was yesterday, everywhere across the country. But I think that should be let's put a pin in that when we talk about this. To own, saying it matters. As for graduation, it was all joy, and so many fronts. And the valedictorian and Linda McKinley did a very similar thing. Both talked about her struggle and loss of her brother, and had this incredible balance of serious and then levity that wasn't inappropriate. That was just the time. I mean, she was brilliant. But I want to. In addition to all of that, I mean, it was all joy. There was such love in the room. But I want to also acknowledge the staff. Maybe because that was where I was for 8 years, working, getting to those last kids, doing whatever you had to do to get them across the aisle. But there was so much love and connection. Those teachers, the principal, custodian. There at South, there's a custodian who I think is also the football coach. He gave out a whole ton. I happened to meet him one day and we had a lovely conversation, but lots and lots of people had him giving out their diplomas to him, because at South you're allowed to choose who gives you your diploma. And the overall point being, community was so evident, and the joy and love, and even principals who were no longer at schools came to see their kids that they had been principals for. Like, there was so much inspiring and beautiful, and it was all joy.
Remember, Vera, your first graduation.
Oh, it was so beautiful. I mean, literally, I didn't realize you need to really train for like a marathon with graduation.
Yes.
I mean, by the time you get to the parking garage, if you're wearing heels, it's all. I'm prepared for next year. But in all seriousness, it was such a beautiful, magical experience. Like seeing our kids, seeing how excited they were, and their families were just so grateful. To all of my colleagues' points, it was very heartfelt and it was touching, and I was so grateful to see even our safety and security. They were there and really helping, celebrating and helping us in so many different ways. And so it was a real honor to be a part of that process, and I'm just really, really in awe of our students. And so many of them came up to me. I had parents come up to me afterwards just thanking me for the Columbus Promise. And I was like, you're thinking it wrong. I was like, that's a power of partnerships, though. Sure. And that's where I kept, I had so many, like, you don't understand, like, my kid didn't know, and now they're going to college, and they're going to college for free. And so I actually sent a message to President Hardin that night because it was so deep on my heart, because so many parents came up to me. And so I really, really walked away from that experience grateful. In regards to safety and security, I echo everything my colleagues have already mentioned. And I just think that it's really, really a priority for us to figure out what we can do to intentionally create more conversations around what makes sense for our district, our students, our staff. And so I think, as Board Member Cole alluded to, like, we do need the community's input in that process, and not from a standpoint of what we're not doing right, but how do we get it right? And we want that input, and we want all of our partners to be a part of that, whether you are a part of our district or if you're over, in the police department or city council. This is our city. These are our kids. So it needs to be a conversation that we are collectively having, and we're also thinking about ways that we can really make our district a safe and vibrant space to be in.
Thank you, board members.
One more quick thing in terms of humility. When you, because Jen couldn't make it, I picked up Fort Hays and saw two colleagues who I was so happy to see, big hugs and kisses, and the next thing they said is, "Don't be too long." It's like,
If I
okay.
could very briefly, 2 points. One, I didn't get to talk about the graduation piece, or that started later. Graduations are wonderful, full of joy, and I did them for many, many years. But I do want to raise a point, and I don't know if this is good timing because of the wonderful joy that comes from all of this, and I hear and see from all of you, and I don't doubt that. I think it's good. But I've mentioned over the years as a board member here that I don't think that board members necessarily make the best keynote speakers at graduation ceremonies. These students, unless you're a parent of student, at the school or close to the students directly, they don't know us. There's no reason for them to know us. Might make us feel good to do that, but I'd like to see consideration of students choosing their speakers. Whether it be somebody high school based, an alum, or somebody. I'd like to see this board consider backing out of most of those. If there's a special one, you know, if it's my daughter's class, yeah, I want to be there and participate in a big way. We can obviously all attend and participate in the joy. But I just, it's something I've raised many times over the years on this board. The second point was back to the safety and security. And I appreciate and agree with everything that I heard from everybody. But one note of caution, and that is I want to make sure that we do not overreact to the fear and the emotional impact of some of this. Looking at the evidence is where we need to be developing our practices. And this is not, when you look at the risk, and you look at what steps that can be taken, you have to keep in mind, you're not going to please everybody. This board never does on big issues. There are folks, and there are some people for whom nothing we could do would be enough, and others that say, be reasonable. I don't want to see, and I went through this discussion for 15 years on my previous board. I don't want to see our schools as armed camps. I don't want to see us gear up in such a way that we're just creating more fear. I think we have to keep all of that in perspective. Thanks.
Madam President, can I say something really quickly?
Okay, so this wasn't actually a planned discussion, and I think that the points, we do need a planned discussion. So unless, I'm going to say no, we're going to go ahead and move on, because I do want to give this the appropriate time that it needs.
But I wanted to talk about Eric's, is specific to Eric's point about graduation.
Oh,
What I wanted to
so that's Board Member Brown's opinion, and he shares that every year. But I do think that, it's something that schools can discuss and talk about. Board members need to be present in order to certify the graduation. So that is important. We do have a role. I think that we all do have connections to our schools. It is our job for our schools and students and families and community to know us. I think we are okay speakers, but I also agree that if they want to bring someone else in, I'm totally fine not speaking either if they have someone. So I think there's a happy medium there, and it's really the students who are making that celebration what it is they want. It's their day. So
That was what she was going to say.
is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, because I feel like our students should know us because we're serving them. And so I don't feel that's just all I wanted to say. Respectfully, I feel like our kids should know us, and we should have some level of engagement and relationships with them. That's all.
Okay, thank you all. Sorry. All right, so let's go ahead and move over to item 5 and say hello to our internal auditor. Hello, Auditor Smith.
Good evening. I do not have a report this evening.
Well, it is good to see you. Item 6, Treasurer's Office. Hello, Mr. Treasurer.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm fine.
Great.
Thank you. No report, just a reminder. Finance and Appropriations will meet, I believe the date is the 15th, if I do the math correctly, right here at 4 p.m.
Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and go to item 7, Board Matters. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Board Member Brown for items 7.1 and 7.2, which are first readings of 2 policies. Board Member Brown.
Thank you. The Governance and Policy Committee continues to work away, and we have another meeting coming up shortly. At our May meeting, we did approve and recommend to this board 2 policies that had come to our attention. One is a change to a bylaw, and that's policy 131, and the other pertains to the treasurer's office and is really an important change to make sure we're fully in compliance with law. As to the first, 131, the amended language removes a provision which only allows the board to waive a second reading on a bylaw or policy where an emergency exists. Emergency is defined as any situation or set of circumstances which the board has reason to believe will close the schools or jeopardize the safety or welfare of students or employees of the district. So we recommend amending the language to remove that and to make it clear that a new policy or policy amendment is effective on the adoption date unless otherwise specified, and repeal is effective on the date the board takes such action. But we have fairly recently had a number of policies that made sense, and nobody had disagreement or issue with moving ahead to adopt it without a second reading. And I think that we ought to have the flexibility to do that. As to the second policy, 6600, and treasurer can speak to it if he'd like, but the amended language prohibits cash back opportunities when someone's using a credit or debit card and places the district in a, the other thing this does, this policy is to put the district in a position to fully comply with state law by designating building safes as extensions of the treasurer's office. And that would be a very helpful move for compliance purposes. Anything to add?
No, the latter is part of our work towards complying. You know, we get that mention or citation or comment about not meeting what we call the 24-hour deposit law. And the section of the code, 9.38, says that that whoever receives the money will deposit with the treasurer of the public office or a properly designated depository. Heretofore, we were using the latter with a properly designated depository, meaning we had to pick it up, put it in the safe, wait for the courier service, get it to, and it was a nightmare. But when you read this, it says deposit with the treasurer. That would be me. And so that would be me, my office, member of our staff. But we felt that the secure safes that we place in the buildings would also constitute that. Legal agreed with us, change in policy. I think, poof, there goes the citation. So it's really well. And we have done such a great job of reducing the amount of cash in our buildings up to this point. We've really minimized that risk. So that's all.
Are there
Questions?
or comments? Boardman Beckerly.
First of all, I love that idea. I'm curious to know who came up with it. It's really smart.
It was a member of my staff, not me. It was a member of my
Tell that
staff.
person good thinking. I am wondering, because I was in elementary school when the policy changed and said you can't take cash to pay for things like class trips and that sort of thing. And there were times when students whose families deal in cash and don't have bank accounts and don't have checking accounts would come in with $3.50 to pay for the class trip, and we would have to say we couldn't take it. Or the same with prom. You know, there's certain things, and I'm wondering if my question is simply, does this allow us to be more flexible about taking cash in? And I'm guessing because your sentence said we're getting really good about not taking cash in the building, the answer is going to be no, but that's my question.
No.
Okay. I'll take it up with you later.
Yeah, that's, we have
No,
multiple
that's fine.
forms of payment, and we've tended to centralize any cash collections.
We don't need to revisit that
minimize
now.
that, so, but.
I just was hopeful.
Are there questions about the policies?
Any further questions about either of these policies? All right, then we'll take them up at the next meeting for adoption. And I do want to mention that our next meeting of this committee is on Thursday, this Thursday morning at 8:30 in the morning. And this will be an entirely virtual meeting. And the topic, for the most part, will be the new draft, the equity policy. And that will probably take all of our time. And probably, knowing this group that's on this committee, it'll be a good discussion.
Thank you. Going to go ahead and move into item 7.3. We had some members attend a mini conference, SOGF conference, and we wanted to provide them the opportunity to give a very short recap. So I'm going to turn it over to Board Member Beckerly and Board Member Cole.
Okay. It was a really productive conference on several fronts. And the one of the two main takeaways that I wanted to share with the board was, well, we were with the entire board and a hired but not yet started superintendent from San Francisco and some board members from Seattle and Atlanta and Houston. So it was a good opportunity to touch base with others that are on this SOFG journey in different stages. So that was really helpful in creating a network that we can touch base on. How's this working? How's that working? So that was one real positive takeaway. The second is AJ hit mindset and unity and trust hard, which is one of the 6 pillars that are on the rubric. And I think when we have our board retreat, put a pin in that because I'm going to talk about it when we talk about our timeline. I would recommend that we schedule in some time to sort of revisit that mindset practice that he calls it, or they call it, we call it, I as genesis of change. You know, that sort of student outcomes change when adult behaviors change. That change begins with me. When you play the video of your leadership, what are times when you didn't do what was best for kids? That whole sort of resetting where we all came together. And there's I think I shared with you all, there's a video of us going through it because we happened to do it streaming in the midst of COVID, early stages of COVID. And it's really helpful to watch that to get us back in that place where we're all sort of really laser focused and we're centered in the work. So I would like to recommend that when we do have our next workshop with AJ, that we work that into a pretty significant part of the agenda. And then the other thing that I talked to Dr. Dixon briefly about this week, and I'm sure Michael has more to add on this as well. And I think Michael had takeaway on communication and collaboration. That was also important. It turns out that the school board of San Francisco is in an odd spot of having mostly new members because the mayor recalled it was all kinds of political unusual circumstances that happened politically in the city of San Francisco. So they were all present, which was highly unusual, and this new superintendent that hasn't yet started. And they're starting from scratch in this work. And so there's an opportunity, I think, and AJ did quite a few times, held us up as a model. And one of the ways we were held up as a model was talking about how our goals, our reading goal and our graduation goal, are both, some versions, most boards arrive at those two metrics in some form or another, but that we were really visionary and really trying to advance the outcomes for our students by picking Portrait of a Graduate and really acknowledging that we're kind of making it up as we go. We're figuring out how to measure mastery of the competencies, what it looks like to be a globally empathetic 4th grader and a 10th grader, and how we're really out there creating 21st century, our North Star of preparing the kids, but also how do we measure it and what does it look like? And they were really, really intrigued by that. And I think there might be opportunity for our boards to collaborate and our staffs to collaborate. So it would be really good during these next few summer months to make all these connections, maybe have a few Zooms and figure out if there's a way forward where we can be exploring this work together. So those are my takeaways.
Thank you, Board Member Beckerly. My takeaways were much of what she just shared, but I first want to start this off by saying that student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change. Student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change. The antecedent of that is our behavior organizationally as adults. I want everybody listening to understand that with every bit of seriousness, that until our behavior changes, we won't see the consequent of student outcomes being progressive to that effect. So I just want us to understand that. The other piece is I think that there's a unique opportunity to include, Madam Superintendent, some of your cabinet members' involvement in these opportunities. I think it was very helpful to hear a administrator from, I think she was from Houston. She's either from Houston or from Des Moines, one of the two. But she participated in this, and she illuminated a very critical point of view that I thought helped me out tremendously. What she very transparently and courageously shared was how administrators who are working with us, internalize our behavior, internalize the things that we say and how they respond to us. They internalize that a certain way, and sometimes it encourages them to respond a certain way. I wish I could remember the exact, example, but the substance of it was that, again, our adult interactions, we need to be all the more thoughtful about that. And I think that including some of your key cabinet folks in these types of discussions, off-site like that, I think they really help us, further our work in this space. The third piece that I got that was really of great substance was the exercises, the work. You heard Board Member Beckley mention the one about the genesis of me as the individual. But there were other things. We did case study work that I thought was very, very, very good and very useful. There was also the calendarizing of work. So I had the opportunity to work on an engagement calendar that I took pictures of, we took pictures of. We'd like to be able to incorporate that into, our calendar moving forward on how we do that and kind of deliberate around that in terms of timing. But there were many exercises that we engaged in as well. This was a can't see in the morning until can't see at night type of situation.
Yes, it was.
It really was. But we got a lot of substance out of it, and I was extraordinarily excited, too, that this was an opportunity where we were highlighted as a prominent school district really making this work, where school districts bigger than us, San Francisco being one of them, are watching what we're doing and seeing how we're working and moving. They were really pleased to hear about our monitoring process and, that conversation, those conversations and how they're going. So where we've got significant work to do on our side, we're aware of that. Please just know that folks around the country are watching us, and they're watching us excitedly. They're watching us, with, how we're modeling this for them in mind. So thank you for the opportunity to send us there, first and foremost, colleagues. We did not go there and waste time or taxpayer dollars. We went there and went to work. And there's a lot that we're going to bring back moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, do you have any questions for those that went? All right, well, I'm excited for the things that you guys have to add into our work, including adding some of that kind of unity kind of work in our retreat, and then updates to the calendar, which we're going to go to next
Okay.
with Board Member Beckerly. So item 7.4, discussion of board implementation timeline.
I think I did get a chance to send this to you, not a week in advance, but a few days in advance. So I tried to clean up this timeline a little bit. I got rid of everything that we had months behind and integrated it where it made sense. And so I highlighted in blue sort of things to talk about. I think the things we should be talking about this evening is that which is highlighted in this blue turquoisey color and anything that's red in the status column. The first blue item, conduct a practice goal monitoring session, particularly with new board members. That's been on the timeline for a while, and we haven't done it, nor have we scheduled a practice board session. We've been doing it in real time. So I think we as a board need to decide if that's a priority, and if so, let's get AJ or one of his assistants to do a practice session with us, or we just, I think we're beyond that, quite honestly, but it was just there, and I didn't want to take it off without that decision. So if anyone feels strongly about scheduling that, if not, I think poor board member Vera, by hook or by crook, we're dragging her along, and she got some high marks the last time from AJ when he weighed in, so I think she's she's probably ahead of me at this point. So, but I didn't want to take that off without sharing, so I think we can agree to take that off. Apropos board member Cole's conversation, there was a lot of good conversation about the engagement plan. That next item that's red, it's not in blue, but it's off track. So I think we have to figure out how to go about doing the thing. We've been talking about it for a while. We kind of got bits and pieces of it. I know.
But we do have a draft one, and it was photographed and.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm really resisting saying I'll be part of the help it because I'm trying to stop saying things like that. But I think somebody needs to take the lead on that in some capacity. And I don't know that this is the time to talk about it, but we need to know in terms of our implementation plan, that's going to stay, and it's going to stay red until we do something. Then the next thing, and I didn't get a chance to talk to our esteemed treasurer ahead of time, but I know you're starting to look into, and you had, at some point you were talking to Ben Mackey from Dallas.
We have not yet connected, but
Right.
he's on my list.
He was the person I put you on to. There are probably others, and I think AJ's given you some stuff in the meantime. If not, I'll make sure you get it, about how to structure the budget in a way that it really, it aligns with the goals and guardrails. And I know you're thinking along that. This had been in that blue line there. This is adopt a budget plan that's aligned with goals and guardrails. So I think that's a TBD, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that that's in the offing and Stan's working on it, essentially. The next red thing is investing at least 50% of the board's monthly minutes into goal monitoring. I'm pretty sure we didn't hit that last month, but either way, Misty has not quite completed that. So I think our goal should be that when we come back in August, Misty will have us caught up in our time use for each month since the last time we did it, which I guess would be March. Right?
Well, if I can interject, we actually did that not too long before we left for the mini conference. We were, again, we've got work to do, but we were at 19%. Yes, ma'am.
But it was the first quarter, so now we got to get caught up on the next quarter.
Okay.
That's all this is.
Okay,
It's just continuing.
my
It
brain
really,
lost.
all it
My
is
apologies.
systematizing.
It's 19%.
But we want to get that so that that's something we do every month and report on. So when we hit this point in the agenda, Misty says, last month you were at X, and then we decide what to do about that, how bad or how good we are, how far off we are. So that needs to be part of this process. And now, this next item that comes straight out of SOFG best practice, which is conducting a board training on governance that students' outcomes focus, that is intended to be not an internal board training, but external community training. Because when we're all to the way to the right on the rubric, we're training the community about what our model is. And then when we're really all the way to the right on the rubric, we're training potential candidates for the board before they even pull their petitions. Now, that's AJ being a little Pollyanna, but our goal is to get to that point. And so that's, I don't think anything we need to do right now. However, we have this training session that's scheduled for June. Oh, I thought I had that in there. Yes, sorry, I forgot. I buried the lead a little bit. On 6/15, we do have training session where we're supposed to do a policy diet, committee diet, and talk about our operating policies and procedures. And I don't think there's any way on God's green earth we're going to get through all of that in 4 hours. So, you know, my recommendation is that we meet in July, although I know I'm a party of one on that. But I think that we have to meet sometime soon to do that. Party of two. Either way, I'm highlighting that to say we have to find time to make sure we get through all of that stuff because it's important. And if we don't do it in July, we should probably make it a priority to do it early in August. And then the rest of it is, and the good news is kind of, so then the other thing is if you get to August 31st, or the August month, if somebody can scroll down to August, as a result of those workshops, we will be implementing whatever operating procedures we decide upon, whatever committee structure, and initiating the policy diet, because that will take some time given the magnitude of our policies or the number of our policies. But in August, we're poised to start doing that next phase of the work based on getting through this training with AJ. So that's kind of exciting, because once we get past that, we're on a little bit of a maintenance going forward. So that's all I have at the moment, and those are the big ticket things that are on the horizon.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to quickly add to that, that a part of our community engagement responsibility is not just the things that Board Member Beckerly stated. It's also incumbent of us as the board to communicate to our stakeholders directly, the community that elected us, our stakeholders directly. It is incumbent of us as the board to communicate student outcomes.
Totally.
So I want to definitely make sure that everybody here at this dais understands that that is our responsibility as per this governance model. It is our engagement responsibility, not just opportunity, but responsibility to convey what our student outcomes have been to the community directly. So thank you for that.
Thank you, and thank you, Board Member Beckerly, for redoing that calendar for us. Are there questions or comments about the timeline? All right, thank you. All right, we're now going to move into our consent agenda. Our consent agenda consists of items 9.1 to 24.5 this evening. Are there any items that a board member would like to be removed for separate vote?
I would like to have a discussion.
Okay, just discussion? Okay, we'll do that in a second. All right, so is there a motion to approve the?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, so there are some items that we would like to discuss, and Board Member Vera, which item would you like to discuss?
Thank you, Madam President. I have item 1225 and 1226 and 1220.
Okay.
If it's okay, I'd like to group item 1225 and 1226 together. Is that okay?
Yes, let me
Okay.
read them. 1225, authority to enter into a purchase service agreement with Sullivan Learning. 1226, authority to enter into a service agreement with Varsity Tutors for School LLC.
So I first of all want to thank the team for really trying to think of ways that we can best serve our kids. And so, you know, me coming from this place of trying to really understand our thought process, it's from the place of trying to make sure that we're really thinking about the outcomes of our students and the efficiency of that process. And so, you know, these two particular contracts are geared towards our IEP students. And for me, you know, as a mother of a child with an IEP, I completely understand all of the different multi-layers that go into educating a child that just needs extra help. But what I want to really highlight for that it takes time for our students to build trust with those specialists in order for the information to be received, in order for the impact to really be there. And so when I see, you know, so our teachers work really hard to build those relationships. We have a plethora of different specialists that work really hard to get our kids to a place that they trust them first and foremost, and that they really feel comfortable in a space that they can learn and receive the information. And so when I look at these two particular contracts, I guess I want to understand, how do you know that this, I don't know if my microphone is on, but how do you know that this strategy is going to work? Outsourcing these IEP services to these two different vendors, which most of the description provided, and I asked a lot of questions, so some of that I did get back, but what I didn't get is really understanding, like, how will this play out on the building level? Because a lot of what was stated, this is a lot of virtual, most of it is with the intention that our kids are gonna meet with these people virtually or in other buildings. The library was listed, maybe their learning centers. And I guess when we look at our kids, when we talk about transportation, we talk about access to, a parental guidance of being able to log them in. I'm really struggling with why, or how do you know that this particular strategy is what's needed for our IEP kids?
Thank you for that question, Board Member Vera. So this particular strategy isn't to replace services that are provided to our students at school. This particular strategy is to provide some compensatory SDI minutes for students that lost time due to quarantine, staff shortages, et cetera. So we would always want to build in and bring in our teachers where we can, but this allows us to open up the doors when we don't have enough teachers to provide those supports, to provide those extra SDI minutes. It gives us access to other certified, qualified teachers to provide those additional minutes for our students. And this practice is similar to with 3GRG for students who are retained in third grade. They're given an opportunity for outside tutoring. So that was part of the past 3GRG consequence. So we did a similar model with another vendor who did things like meeting at the library. And you're absolutely right. One of the key pieces they're building relationships is having those same tutors and having that ongoing. So even for these SDI minutes, it's not a one and done, but I want to be really clear. It is not to replace the services for our students with IEPs at the school at all. It's to provide an additional layer of capacity to make sure our students are receiving those minutes that they deserve.
Right, and I appreciate that. I guess I still specifically with the Sylvan contract specifically, what is the monitoring process to make sure that these services are in fact, IEPs are very specific, and we have a requirement to make sure that this instructional education is being done a certain way because every kid is different. What is our monitoring process to making sure that our IEPs are actually being executed the way that they're supposed to, the way our teachers know that it's supposed to happen with a third-party vendor?
So we would get reports after the sessions. So again, similar to how we did before, we get reports after each of the sessions, how the students did, not just examples of the work, but also reading behaviors, for example. So we had before, what did this look like? What did the student do? And then we have follow-up. We will have follow-up meetings with all of these vendors throughout the process.
Okay, so I just want to clarify. So you're telling me that we do not have the capacity with this current staff that we have, with the current intervention specialists that we have, that we can't make up these hours with the staff that we already have?
With the current time that we have during the day, because again, this is on top of, these are in additional minutes, and with the staffing that we have, we do not currently have the capacity. We had to go outside and get additional third-party support.
And have we looked at after-school tutoring opportunities? Has that been looked at in terms of just addition with our teachers?
Yes.
Has that strategy been explored?
Yes, so we have a strategy, Power On, which is one of the strategies across the district that are being utilized. But yes, our very first layer was to reach out to teachers and see where can we get additional and who do we have available to do this additional support.
Okay, and so to clarify, I know, so is the Sylvan, that is a temporary until we catch up the minutes? I believe it was stated 10%
Yes,
are missing the SDI minutes?
this is a term where we've actually been working with ODE throughout this year to get to the solution of what this can look like. So this is to get our students caught up on these minutes, and then it wouldn't be an ongoing forever thing.
Okay. And I guess my follow-up question to that is, for our ELL families or families who, don't speak, like how is this service going to be communicated to such a large, because this is a large amount of families that, according to this data, are supposed to be participating or learning how they're supposed to take advantage of this. What is our rollout
So we'll work
process?
with our ELL team and our translators to do two things. One, communicate through phone, through contact, and then also translating documents so that we make sure that our students, of our families that are not native English speakers, that English is their second language, that we are able to make sure they have all of that information as well as the follow-up as they go through this tutoring.
Thank you. And I guess that also kind of rolls into, Madam President, for item 1220.
Can you pause because we actually have some more questions from board members on those two? So go to Beckerly, then Cole.
Let me just see if I can say this a different way to make sure that we are clear, because I think Board Member Vera brings up a really important point. But this is the strategy that we've come up with because we've exhausted, and this is a retrospective only, as you said, it's not going forward. It's to make up that which was lost during quarantine and COVID. And so some part of this is about, well, let's say, just leave it at that. But we've exhausted any possibility, or have we, or can we say we've exhausted the possibility that our teachers who already have relationships with these kids might be available to do it?
We have tried that.
Okay.
At the beginning of the year, we actually tried also connecting with Ohio State
Oh, to get students.
to try those pieces, but it is such a large capacity, large number of students that we need to provide these, excuse me, these minutes to, and also in a timely fashion, that this is the strategy.
So some part of this is the result of one of the many ongoing problems that COVID created.
Absolutely.
And it's interplay with the regulatory scheme of
Absolutely.
special education.
Because one of the key things we also want to keep in mind, when we think about trying to make up these minutes during a school day,
Yeah, you can.
you don't want to remove kids from Tier 1 instruction
That would be awful.
to add these, additional minutes. You want to find time where you can do that. And you also want a time that's flexible for families, where they can say, okay, meeting at the library at 6 o'clock is going to work. That works for me, versus, something like that. And we saw that with the 3GRG tutoring model, where parents had the opportunity to say, okay, this fits with my schedule.
Board Member Cole.
Thank you, Madam President. If I am off in my understanding, please feel free to correct me. Will some of these supplemental services provided also be allotted to students who may not live in the district or be in the district, but we are responsible for their IEP services as the district?
That's a great question. Let me find that out for sure. I think my answer initially would be if we're responsible for their IEP, then we provide those services. But let me find that out for sure.
I thank you. I'd like to know that.
Yep.
Madam President?
Did you want to go to the next one? Or you?
No, I had a follow-up after. And so just thinking about strategic planning, right? Would you say that, I guess I want to understand what is our strategic plan for hiring the staff that we need so that it's not like we're finding other people to plug in. Yeah, I feel like what is the strategy to make sure that we have the manpower within our district?
Absolutely.
Because like I said, I think that we have to sometimes think about the lens of our kids. And, they're going to see a stranger that they've never worked with before. And then we're back to putting them on a computer for remote learning, which is where we had the biggest disconnect during COVID. And many of these services are going to be done virtually. So how do we know that this is actually a good strategy and it's going to be impactful. I'm still not really seeing.
So one of the ways that we're going to look at that impact is through that ongoing monitoring and looking at what those sessions look like. So when students finish a session, getting those reports. So although it will be, like Varsity Tutors is virtual, they're still meeting with a live person. They're not asynchronous. And so that's where a lot of that disconnect came from too, is that disconnect. But in response to, or in response to your question about what are we doing to make sure we have the staff. So right now we have, I believe the number is 60 teachers that are part of a cohort to get their special education teacher licensure. So we are working with Ohio Dominican University to provide opportunities for teachers who want to go through and get this licensure to be able to do that, so that we are increasing in our high need areas. With special education is a very big one. It's everywhere you see that need. So that's one of the things strategically that we're looking to do, is how can we help our teachers? You are right, our teachers build the relationships with the kids. Our teachers are who the kids want to work with. So how do we build that capacity and increase our capacity to be able to do this? And so that's one of the programs, or one of the strategic plans that Kelly Rivers, who is our Executive Director of Specialized Instruction, has put in place.
And to add to that too, thank you for lifting that. I was going to speak to how we're working with our partners. And ODE was the one that was the most flexible in allowing us to provide this for our staff. So we are experiencing staff shortages in key areas, and special education is one of those. And so we did reach out to several colleges, and we had a meeting earlier today with one college and talked about we need more flexibility, but ODE did provide this. Mike DeFabo is on. I'm not sure if, Mike, you want to speak to some other strategies we have regarding our a high needs area. But to your point, Board Member Vera, we forward thinking is we need more specialized staff members, period. That's the overall strategy. We have to get more specialized staff members. But in the interim, we use, as Leslie stated, Power On and some other partners to fill in the gap. Is it ideal? No, because we want our students to be face-to-face with teachers and personnel that they trust, as you stated. But overall, as we experience in this shortage, we reached out to those colleges and universities to provide us some flexibility in providing our staff members with certifications in high needs areas. And we are not just seeing it just in Columbus. We are seeing it across the state. We even talked earlier today in cabinet meeting that there's a school district, some school districts are offering up to $10,000 sign-in bonuses for special ed teachers. And so Mike and I were talking about that early this morning. He said, and I said, yeah, I know some districts now, smaller districts, that are offering $2,500 sign-in bonuses and still can't get people. So our long-term strategy is we have to grow our own. We're partnering with the university to say, here is who has the flexibility that can partner with us to provide the certification in this area of need for our school district. And I know Mike.
No, I'm not actually going to allow him to speak.
Oh, okay.
Just because this is such an important conversation, but not on point to the actual agenda items.
Yes,
and
that's
I
true.
did let it
Yeah.
go because it is
Thank you.
important. And if we want to and should, we should put this in a report, and let's talk about that strategy.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one that you wanted to speak about, which is 12.20, which is authority to enter into a purchase agreement with Paper Education Company. Remember, Vera?
Thank you, Madam President. So this was another kind of strategy. I did appreciate the one-pager review we got last night. But I guess my question is, even with this small kind of synopsis of data that you've collected, I guess I want to understand we have a lot of different platforms, right? And so, and I asked specifically about, like, is there an inventory sheet? Because I after reading some of this, and, you know, I'm still learning, but I feel like some of these things are, in my opinion, and I'm not the experts, you all are, but they seem to be overlapping. and maybe they're not. So like I said, I'm being loose with that. But I guess my question is, how are we really monitoring the effectiveness of a tool like this in comparison to what we already have? Because on the description for this particular item, it was stated, and let me quote that just to be, it says here that, in addition, teachers will be able to submit assignments through the platform for targeted support and intervention. So I guess, is that our teachers submitting assignments through this platform and then wanting to understand why we would be putting stuff through this platform and not utilizing through our Infinite Campus, like the Google Classroom, like all the systems we presently have? What is truly the benefit of adopting a whole new system? I saw the features as far as 24 hours, 7 days a week, which is also like, is it really 24 hours, 7 days a week? I don't know, but I guess I want to really understand the strategy and understanding why do you feel this particular system is valuable in connection with all of the other 24-hour, 7-day-a-week tutoring service vendors that we presently have? Why this particular platform?
Thank you again for that question. So what Paper does is Paper provides live tutoring, and it provides live tutoring and also your selected language, and a variety of different languages, as well as in multiple subject areas. So calculus, for example, is one that is sometimes really hard to find a tutor. And students can log in and start writing on the whiteboard, submit a question that they're struggling with, and get help in answering or moving through, working through that work. When it says a teacher can submit an assignment, and we have some teachers that have done this, so that if a teacher has a couple of students and these students are working on paper, like working with paper, they're utilizing that access. Because say, I don't have anybody at home that can help me with that homework, and I need somebody to help me do that. The teacher can submit that to Paper, and then so those tutors that are work with those students know this is coming. And so what Paper does, part of what they do is they give us quarterly reports that let us know how the program's being utilized. We can get those reports by student, by region. And so then they have meetings with the regions to let the different regions know, the principal coaches, the principals, the area superintendents, this is how your region is doing. That's where we noticed that the greatest usage comes from our 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. And that kind of makes sense when you're thinking about work starting to get a lot more complicated, a lot more complex. And if I don't have somebody at home who can help support that, having that access helps. It's different when you look at some of our other platforms, like McGraw's Reveal, which is our math program. That is a platform, but there's not a live tutor that comes with that. There's not somebody that can provide that additional live access, that real-time access. I do have, and I can share it with you, I do have we do have from Clever, because almost all of our platforms are accessed through Clever. Clever is like I call it the tote, where everything goes into it. And we can actually see and get a printout of the number of teachers that are logging in, the number of students that are logging in, the active minutes, and so we see those. And then it also will tell you if it's a district, which means it's district adopted, or a specific building or a teacher.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that maybe, Madam Auditor, that's something as we look at in terms of that ongoing sheet that you've mentioned in Clever, because I would be curious to see, like, for example, the sheet that was provided, the overview that was provided to us, there was no real specific data on this overview. You mentioned that you were able to collect data by regions, coaches, and input from all these other individuals. None of that information was provided to us. So I think when we talk about, all of these different inputs from, and the data is showing that we are really utilizing this tool, that type of information is important to me, especially when we're always asking, are we seeing a trend in the region? Are we seeing that we need to provide? And so that information was not provided here. So that would be something that I think if we have it, why are we not talking about it and showing it? because I think that's part of also what we need to educate the community. When we make investments in our kids in this capacity, we want to be able to demonstrate why we're making this investment. And this product overview really, to me, just didn't give all of those details.
Well, I'm going to jump in because I actually asked for that because that was my exact question, Board Member Rivera. What is our return on investment in this product? Because you're asking us to renew it. And I've had personal experience with it, with my student, and it was frustrating and annoying, and she didn't want to use it again. And so I was disappointed in the data that came back to answer that. And I'm disappointed to sit here now and hear that there's additional data that was better data that probably would have answered the question. And instead, we got anecdotal comments from 3 students who thought it was great. Right? So you're asking us to spend money, and I'm asking, prior to Board Member Rivera asking, what is our return? What's our return? And on a lot of these things, right? A lot of these products that we're renewing, especially, you need to talk to us in terms of, the alignment not only to our goals and guardrails, but what is that investment in the money we're spending as well as the outcomes we're seeing for our students? And this, again, is because we're having a governance shift, right? We're looking at everything differently, and so we need you to adjust.
Yep, so we will work on, the team on making sure that when we have these, and we can have these discussions during our agenda reviews, when we have our meetings, and we can talk about those and make sure that our teams are really thinking strategic when we put our answers. And then we're talking about in those meetings, because you're right, we're making some big investments. These are tools that we know from our professionals that work with our students, work for our students and work for our families, and really changing and shifting with our new governance model to make sure that we are providing that information here into our families, and we're evaluating our programs. One of the things that PDK audit stated that we were not doing is we didn't have program evaluations. So we've been intentional now to make sure, and not all of them, but we will get there, that we're evaluating our programs and our products that we're implementing so that we're looking at those evaluations before we move forward with renewing. So as we are working on our new governance model, we know that these are questions that are going to be asked. We know that data, we're shifting to being a data-driven district and making sure that we have all of this data before we are making decisions, but that is a shift that the organization as a whole is making, and we are continuing to strive to that and provide that information before we're making these decisions. But I would also ask it, and I would know that, I know that when we start having our discussions prior to approval, we'll make sure that we're giving you the answers and that so that you have what you need to make the decision. And if there are some questions, we'll go back and have those meetings and have those clarifications done for you. But thank you for some good questions. And again, we'll keep shifting and making sure that we answer those.
Pearson Beckerly.
So my question just kind of relates to how we set up these particular contracts when it comes to the summary that's provided in our board materials. And that background and return on investment block, is there any way that we could create a threshold at the onset for when we do move forward to support these contracts, that the threshold is given at the onset? Meaning that we expect or anticipate 80% of our students to regularly engage with this software throughout the course of the school year. And if that threshold is not met, then we won't move forward with a future contract. So for me, I would like to know at the onset how we expect to use the software, what we expect that return to be, as opposed to us going back at the end of the year and saying, oh, 75% of our students used it, so we're going to renew it again, right? I want us to be very thoughtful about why we are purchasing these particular software and products.
I agree. Yeah, I think we can put that in a backgrounder with that data attached. Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Dr.
Member Beckerly.
Yeah, I think I'm just repeating what Board Member Pierce just said, but, you know, I'm looking at, the form says background and return on investment, but that's not what is coming back to us. So I think some sort of a chart.
Yeah.
That, you know, this is where we are, this is where we need to be, and did it happen? If it didn't happen and we still think it's worthwhile, which is perfectly possible, this is why.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, again, as I stated, it's a shift, right? So it's a shift in the way that we're organizing this, the information that we're providing to the board, and we will make that shift so that board members will have all the information they need with the data we need before we move forward. But thank you.
Mr. Cole?
Thank you. Is there any idea that you can give to us at this moment what would the impact of a no be on this particular contract? What would the impact of no be?
For the paper contract?
Yes, ma'am. What is the impact to students and student outcomes if there is a no on this legislation?
Well, if we give,
I would say if
Yeah.
if you want to say hold until we get you some more of that data versus a no.
yeah.
Because what it does, if there's a no, it takes away that additional access for students that they have available to them. But a hold
Yeah.
would give us time to give you the data.
Bring it back on the 21st.
So, Madam President, I'd like to motion that we take this off of today's consent agenda for further consideration moving forward.
No, we gotta do it like he said, Ramona, because it's in the consent. So first we gotta pull it out of consent to table it. Oh, Eric Roush is not here.
That's all right.
Yeah, no, I think
I think that's what we have to do.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a motion to pull item 12.20 out of the consent agenda for separate vote.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Do
Just
you
wanna be-
do you
just
know
wanna
what we're
be clear.
doing? Okay.
1220 is the only one that you're considering, and you're pulling it out for a separate vote?
Yes.
Or-
Because we want to
And then we'll
table it.
table it.
It's right now, it's in the whole consent agenda, and we can't do anything with it separately.
Okay. I'm with you now, just want to make sure.
So we're roll calling the moving it out of the consent agenda as a separate item.
And Mr. Cole made that motion. Who seconded that, or did we?
Beckerly.
Thank you. All set?
No, I have a question. Because we already did a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Do we have to drop that motion first? No. Okay.
You're in essence, this actually is a motion to amend the approval of the consent agenda to remove or exclude 1220 from that vote. So if you approve to amend that motion to approve the consent agenda, in essence, what you're saying is that you want to amend the consent agenda to approve the consent agenda except for item 1220. And if the motion that's on the table. So if you approve that amendment to that motion, then 1220 is out, and the motion before you would be to approve the consent agenda as amended, excluding a vote on 1220.
And then we have to go back.
1220 would not therefore be on the floor until you made a later motion to put 1220 back on the floor, or to table 1220 because it is part of your agenda in general for consideration tonight. So I would suggest that if your intention is to hold, as was suggested, translation to table, that's what you do right after you amend the consent agenda, vote on the consent agenda, and then table 1220.
But really, he's moving to amend the motion.
He's amending the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
We stated it to pull 1220 out simply for, that's
Clarity.
in essence what happens once you do that. But we will word it such that he's moved to amend the motion to approve the consent agenda to exclude item 1220.
Okay, and that's the second.
Okay?
Okay, so now roll call that.
All right. This is to amend the motion. Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
Ms. Vera, and President Adair.
Yes.
The motion to amend the main motion has passed.
Okay, so that we will hold now. No, we're just going to keep going with the consent agenda.
Yeah, because the consent
So-
agenda is still on the table
Are
as
there-
amended.
Are there other items in the consent agenda anyone would like to discuss? Okay, seeing none, may we please call the roll for consent agenda
As amended.
as amended.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce,
With the exception of 12.1 and 12.2, of which I'm abstaining, yes.
You have to do 12.12 as well.
Did I say 12.1 and 12?
you said 12.1 and 12.2.
Okay, let me correct that. With the exception of 12.1 and 12.12, of which I'm abstaining, yes,
Okay, 12.1 and 12.12.
yes.
Got it. Yes, except for those abstentions. Thank you. Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
Ms. Vera,
Yes, with the exception of 12.25 and 12.26, where I'm voting no.
okay? And President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly.
Yes.
The amended motion passes.
All right, thank you. So now we're at item 12.20. Is there a motion to table? Or make a motion to table? I guess I can do it.
Second, or so moved, excuse me.
Second.
Fine.
Is that
Cole,
you, Ms. Beckerly?
Cole,
Did you-
Pierce.
Thank you. All set?
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
Ms. Vera,
Yes.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
No, I'm satisfied that we have the information we need to move forward tonight.
So that was a no.
No,
Okay, thank you. Motion carried.
with an explanation.
All right, so that's tabled. All right, we're going to go ahead and move into public comment. Item 25.1. We have one speaker, Vanita Hunt. Are you here? Yes. Topic is hate crime and an assault action. She wants the teacher to be terminated for pulling her child's hijab off her head. I will let board members know that this matter is currently under investigation in our HR department. And Ms. Hunt, if you could please not reveal the name of your student or the name of the staff involved. Otherwise, I'm going to have the microphone turned off, okay? Correct, because we have an active investigation. You have 3 minutes to address the board. The clock will appear on the screen. You may begin whenever you're ready.
So my name is Vanita Hunt, and I have a 12-year-old 7th grader at CCSPG. And on the morning of May 11th, 2022, my daughter had a choir recital and wanted to wear her hijab. It would be her first time in school wearing it, but she's been practicing for 3 years. And wasn't comfortable with wearing it at school, but she chose to wear it for her choir recital. She was in the auditorium with the whole 6th and 7th grade class. A teacher walked up behind her and snatched it from her head. You know, it goes around your neck, so it yanked her and told her that she was a Muslim, and she had to take it off. She responded and said, I am Muslim, and she said, you never wore it before, made a big scene, called other teachers. They said they didn't know, but this would be her first year, in school because of COVID. So they never asked her or, didn't have no information to even know if she was or not. The next day, my daughter came home crying, upset. The next morning, I went to the school about 8 o'clock in the morning, asked to speak to the principal about what happened. The principal said she was busy. Well, she didn't say, the secretary said she was busy, that she couldn't talk to me about it, that she would call me in a day or so. That would have been Thursday morning I went there. Friday, she did call me and let me know that Monday or when she gets to it, we'll have a meeting and talk about it. I didn't hear from the principal for a couple days. I figured she was busy. It's the end of the year. Well, within them days, the teacher, my daughter didn't wear the hijab again, and the teacher kept saying remarks like, "Oh, you don't have her hijab on today." Another day went past. The teacher continued to say remarks like she was arguing with other students. "Oh, Muslims don't talk like that." Multiple snickers back and forth stating that move along up the steps, or because I don't want your mother to put a soda out on me. Just continuously saying stuff. So I go back up to the school. I asked to talk to the principal again. The principal said that she was busy. I did get loud. I asked, "I need to talk to you now because it keeps going on." The principal did come out and told me that she thought that it was over. She did talk to the teacher and she did talk to my child. I thought we were going to have a meeting, but we didn't. And she said we would make a meeting for all of us to sit down that Monday. Now, this would be 2 weeks. Friday I was really upset. She was saying that at 8 o'clock in the morning, Monday, we could have a meeting and all sit down. Monday morning come, I get there at 8 o'clock. At like 8:30. Friday, I thought she said after 8. She said at 8. I got there at 8:30. She said she could not meet me again. So I called the police and put an assault report out. I'm going through that. I called multiple staff. I went to State Street. I'm doing everything that I need to do. My daughter missed field day, the last day of school, and the teacher is still in there making remarks, and I just don't know what to do at this point.
Well, thank you, Ms. Hunt.
And that's it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Thank you for addressing us. Clearly, these are very serious allegations. Regardless of the outcome, I am sorry that your child and you are going through this. These clearly are allegations that the board and district take seriously, as it directly impacts policy and goes against things we stand for inclusion and religious freedom. And so know that, the matter, like I started off with, is an investigation. The superintendent, she would be the authority in this situation, so please reach out directly to her if you have questions.
Well, more than.
Okay, so next we are going to go into executive session. Vice President Reyes.
I move that the Board of Education recess into executive session per section 121.22G1 of the Ohio Revised Code to consider the appointment, employment, or compensation of public employees.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Dr. Pierce? Dr. Pierce?
Said yes.
Okay. Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Vera?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
And Mr. Cole?
Yes.
The motion carried.
Thank you. We will now go to executive session and come back for public adjournment. However, that will not be televised. So good night to all the staff and everyone who is watching.